past 4. You past 4, it's local, not UTC or anything. I really need to get out of the habit of using local time zones, seeing how many people very far from where my time zone is located watch this channel. It's interesting. The UTC 2100, yes, it has a slight ring to it, a 24-hour clock with universal. Well, we got a lot to get into. A lot of it has to do with a few wildfires that we might be able to notice. They'll be popping up and starting, and there's going to be a lot of smoke. There's going to be a smoke screen above Queensland, New South Wales. Not just because of the hurricane, because these wildfires that are burning in the southeast side are still have some pretty big bodies on their flames. So you can see them, you'll see them pretty accurately. But it's this northern peninsula of Queensland where this Cyclone Jasper is going to turn into a Category 2 tropical cyclone just before it makes landfall and just after it makes landfall, before it becomes a Category 1 and lower. That was always expected. I reading as a Category 2, so it shouldn't be too much of a surprise, but it stopped being a Category 1, sorry, Category 2 some time ago, and until it picked up steam and trying to avoid a rocky death. The storm has to do a lot of crazy things before it hauls itself up on top of land, and tries to go for the thinnest amount of land possible. Not sentient or sapient, it's a system that gets obliterated by land. Gets his knees knocked out. I don't know however you want to say it, but it is a rocky death. This thing started over in the Solomon Islands and headed southwest for a few days until today and tomorrow. Probably Wednesday. There's still going to be remnants of this tropical cyclone and a whole bunch of spiraled off arms of systems that are going to be creating havoc, but the one thing that we can gather out of hazards while talking about the wildfires and these storms is that there's not a lot of lightning associated with this cyclone. And by the time it comes up on shore and you start seeing its eye roll up, it's going to be probably tropical, a Category 1 or lesser tropical cyclone. Take a zoom in. Now this is Cyclone Jasper. It really tightened up a great deal after it lost its giant spiral arm over the last day that it just got the East Coast wet. And the thing about right now is that Queensland isn't seeing a lot of drought. It's seeing a lot of very moist, highly moist soil. So they're not going to see... Wait, let me repeat that. They're going to see a lot of flooding, possibly. A lot of flash flooding because the water doesn't have the ground to seep in. The rivers are full. There's drought on the other side of the country, in Western Australia, pretty significantly. Well, like 2/3 of the country, last I looked. Or, sorry. 1/3. I don't mean... Definitely not 2/3. It's 1/3. It was 1/3. Now this cyclone has been barreling down and gaining strength, making everything unpredictable. But I think now it's in a reasonable state. All the modeling looks to be identical. There's no guess on where this is actually going to hit. Its eye is going to be in a couple of days. Can't tell if it's doing an eye wall replacement or if the eye is just scuttling down. It's feeling a very strange storm. You can see down here, this is what we were talking about with the smoke. Smoke doesn't have to move. Smoke transits with other smoke. It gets pulled like silk, spider silk. This is a significant wildfire right here, and this is becoming. This is the border of New South Wales to Queensland. Queensland's up here. This is New South Wales, and down there is Australian Capital Territory. So seeing any kind of wildfire activity in New South Wales to me is new. I have not seen much of any fire activity in this fire season with Australia. I haven't seen smoke like this since the wildfire smoke from Canada infiltrated the United States and was hanging around the Northeast. It looked like this kind of smoke, very, very taffy-like, very pulled apart, because this smoke survived the night and it looks lived in. But now there's daytime, there's wind, there's activity, there's action. So the smoke gets pulled around, pushed around, and pulled apart. And smoke will always follow smoke. So even though that a bunch of smoke got pushed around, it's eventually going to make these wispy smoke screens as the smoke slowly drags itself over to where it's going to go, while the rest of the smoke is just expanding flat. The smoke has met here, here, over a wildfire. This is dangerous, because as we say constantly, smoke will find other smoke that will allow the flames underneath to transit easier, the path of least resistance. It's hotter, there is different winds, there's lower wind, because when you get that amount of smoke that's pushing down, you're getting a lot of winds that are, several hundred feet lower. That squishes air pressure. So you put down a whole load of smoke and they meet, they make a bridge of support between the two fires. We've seen that plenty of times over the last few months, where eventually it makes this, it really does resemble a bridge. It looks like that. Maybe if I, yeah, more bridge-like, right? Oh, okay. So we can see already that their daytime is starting with a bang. Not saying that there's a wildfire or wildfires. There's definitely a wildfire right here that's burning. And again, we don't really look at wildfires that we can't see from satellite. So a lot of these bushfires, brush fires, go overlooked. And then a day later, the fire moved 40 kilometers north and is burning over a whole new border. Can't predict these things. You can only manage to try to keep up on them and watch. there are a number of wildfires that are burning. See, up here, smoke. Not surprised to see smoke. There are some wildfires, and over the night, they just were allowed to stew. And all that smoke isn't going anywhere. The fire will. The smoke over top, before the eye, before it has to do eye wall replacement, before it has to do all this crazy stuff, before the cyclone comes upon land, it's going to release a lot of vortexes that are just like spiraling out that turns into these water spouts, pumping its brakes. It's lost probably half of its growth or half of its entire self, because that first giant iron spiral that hit across the East Coast was most of its being. Now it's significantly smaller unless it's on an angle, which I don't think it is, but we can't see the eye. Well, the sun is just hitting it, so it's going to be warming this storm up, and we'll be able to see what it does over the next probably hour. This has become a very tall, interesting storm. It was a very wide, very big Category 4, and it's turned into this much more elegant storm that is just spiraling in a weird, strange way with a lot of water behind it. So these next two arms that come out, it's just like, they eventually cool off. Those can be some storms, but for what we've seen, this is a real-time lightning map, lightningmaps.org. You can see the storms are in the southeast by Adelaide. There is no lightning associated with Cyclone Jasper. There is no lightning that is occurring over Queensland. There is no lightning over New South Wales. There is only lightning a bit in Melbourne, but it's all in Adelaide, which I don't believe is under drought, and this is more South Australia, which they only had fires up here in the northwest of South Australia. The fires from Northern Territory creep down into Southern Australia not that long ago, but that's not why we're looking at this map. We're looking at this map just to see that there has not been any lightning associated with the storm. It is a lot of rain. It'll probably be a few months of rain in just a couple of days, so, which will lead to flooding, flash flooding, flooding emergencies. But can't argue with that. There is no lightning. There should not be any lightning, a threat of lightning, any lightning that's going to be starting wildfires at least. Unless something changes with this storm over the next 24 hours, which it doesn't look like it, which is good. There's just a lot of water to deal with in Queensland. It's right here. This storm has been making some interesting moves over the last couple of days as it gets closer and closer to Queensland. Pretty much on it now. This arm of storm right here, this is part of it. So it's already made landfall, but it's not over land yet. It's a difference. When this thing is over land, then we're going to see that eye. It's going to pop up as high as it can, just to shimmy over and drop down on land. Very over exaggerated, but it does have to heave itself up on top of land, and that's usually what slows it down. Pumps the brakes, hits the water spouts out. There's a lot of action involved in these storms. But right now, it's looking like it's getting shredded against the land as it's acting as a grindstone on itself, because it's gotten tremendously smaller over the last couple of days. Now, where is... Here we go. This is a false color satellite image of Cyclone Jasper. Just a whole scan of this eye, its whole body, about 2/3 of it. Spectacular sights. Use this to be able to see where there is seawater compared to, let's say, ocean. It will show up differently. As of now, we're looking at this massive arm that's coming off this thing. Is just punchy with rain. What a crescent. There's so much rain here. It is just going to wring itself out, which it did. This is from the other day or yesterday. This is before that giant spiral arm came off and just soaked the whole East Coast. That's what we're seeing here. It is a massive storm. Well, it was. Now it doesn't really know what it's doing. Now, as for wildfires that are in Queensland, they just carry along. Here are some more. Make a time lapse of this interesting complex fire. Got nothing until the 9th. That is just these massive burns that are still ongoing. You can still see this is all going to burn in between. I wonder if that's burning along a fence line or a road that's bumping up to it. That looks pretty extreme. This is a big old burn patch land here. A lot of patchy burns that has happened over the last couple of days. More patchy burns. And what we see here Another fire in Queensland. One closer to the storm. Make a time lapse of it, see if we can see where it might have started. Nope. But we see some fire here in the south. And this thing just rips north within a day. Another fire burning. Another active burning perimeter. Oh. There's some pretty spectacular fires. Yeah, there's still a lot of fuel left in this one here. See, most of these fires just appeared the last day or so. Yeah, most of them have been the last day or so. You get to see what it looks like as it fades in age. The fire in the top up here on the north center, middle. And then just right on top of it, it just starts all over again. Come out in waves. Huh. Okay. Just, it doesn't take us long to find another major fire burning. Different, unique, complex fire behavior. These are all these fires are just within the last day. So it's, I can't tell if it's picking up because of the storm or if it's just normal fire behavior. Because we're getting out further from the storm. We're getting out Northern Territory. We're getting closer to Western Australia. And at that point, like how many hundreds of kilometers can a fire run in one day? If that we were ever going to find out in Australia, this would be that time. We've seen fires race 200 kilometers without the aid of a storm. That was from Northern Territory to Western Australia earlier in the year. You've seen some spectacular runs of a fire. Just in the middle of nowhere, just over these dunes. Yeah, just there's nothing and then massive amounts of fire. Say massive, there were massive amounts of fire because it takes a lot to chew up a region like this. That's a blaze right there. Quite numerous amount of fires. We just keep going. Now we're getting to patchy burns areas of Western Australia, going into way further west. And these are from previous burns in the fire season since August. These aren't. Yep. There's some activity. So they have active fire perimeters in far west Western Australia where they are experiencing drought. So these fires too should be looked out for, because too many factors for fire. That's unfortunate. If this storm gives Western Australia Northern Territory much needed rain, that'd be great. All of Queensland is wet, soaked. Soils gonna reject any further saturation, and over burn scars as well. Water is just going to skid across, slide across. This is a lot of. Let's see. Look, this guy is pretty big. .2 kilometers. It's probably like 10 kilometers thick or wide. There was nothing until the 9th. Seeing this happening more and more as we continue to work the area, work the region, work the state, try to find evidence of ongoing current active fire perimeters. That's what we're finding. But we're not having to look very hard. This is just using false color urban. This isn't a special script that only detects wildfires, that only appears, like, there's none of that now. Now, speaking of which, if I were to go to true color, it would look generally the same, but it just is, you wouldn't really notice the active fire perimeters. Let's go back to false color. I would go back to true color to see smoke. Not a lot of smoke. And of course, heat and fire drives away moisture and water. So any water that this storm can spare the western side of Australia is desperately needed. Alarming amount of large fires. Still in Western Australia. See this fire here burning just on the border of Western Australia and Northern Territory. Again, nothing until yesterday. This is the 11th complex fires that we've seen like this that burned, dozens of square kilometers in land. Just there's so much fuel left to burn that these fires here, right here, 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 also here. And then we have this side of the flank. It's currently a lot of burning fire. Unfortunate to see, because if no, it's real unfortunate to see. It's oh, they're just right next to each other. These long fires that burn through and then out. Sometimes it might not be hot enough or not be enough available fuel to burn out, so it just keeps burning trails. Let's go back at Cyclone Jasper. Mixing. Yeah, that's a lot of smoke. A slight technical issue with the camera. Should be coming back up in a minute. Here we go. Now, this is all smoke here. All silky smoke, I guess, pulled apart like taffy. You have this smoke that's coming, meeting this fire here. Is currently burning pretty significantly. Some burns here. Nothing catastrophic, just a lot of smoke for New South Wales. Alright, I believe that is all the time I have for this now. We looked at some wildfires, we looked at a great storm looking about to wash up on land. There's not a lot of lightning associated with this storm, so there's not going to be a lot of hazardous fires as a result of lightning. It's going to be a lot of water. It's going to be a lot of rain. Months of rain in just a couple of days. And it's all going to be falling on areas that need water. Everything south of here is pretty saturated, except this peninsula up here. And if this storm does this, it might break apart in the Gulf here. It's still heading, it says a Category 2 tropical cyclone. Alright, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Helps me out immensely, and I will be back with another stream either today or tomorrow. I gotta get better on scheduling.